or The Wise Path to Wealth. Buddha, Marcus Aurelius, and the Blueprint for a Full Life. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. Narrated by Roman Cross. He had everything, or so it seemed. The corner office. The dream house. A watch that could buy someone else's month. His LinkedIn profile read like a highlight reel, and strangers often asked, "What's your secret?" But on the morning of his 43rd birthday, sitting alone in his quiet kitchen, he realized something that terrified him. He felt nothing. The success that once thrilled him now felt like a costume. The house echoed, not with laughter, but with pressure. He had built the life he was supposed to want. But somewhere along the way, he had lost himself in it. This book is for him, and for anyone who's ever reached a milestone only to feel emptier after the applause. We've confused wealth with accumulation, with trophies, digits, speed. But what if wealth was never meant to be chased? What if it was meant to be cultivated from the inside out? In The Wise Path to Wealth, you'll walk alongside two ancient guides who lived on opposite ends of power: Buddha, who gave up a kingdom to find stillness, and Marcus Aurelius, who ruled one while trying not to be ruled by it. Both pointed to a quieter form of success, one rooted in clarity, simplicity, and self-mastery. This isn't about becoming less ambitious. It's about becoming less distracted, less reactive, less ruled by the world's noise. It's about trading the exhausting chase for a grounded kind of fulfillment that doesn't fade when the market dips or the compliments stop coming. As Jim Rohn once said, happiness is not something you postpone for the future, it is something you design for the present. That's what this book is, a blueprint, not just for financial wisdom, but for a full, deliberate life. So if you're ready to stop sprinting and start seeing, let's begin. The Wise Path is waiting, and it starts right where you are. Chapter 1. The Lie of More. There's a strange kind of hunger that grows the more you feed it. Not physical hunger, something subtler, more deceptive. You feel it when you scroll social media and see someone with a larger house, a thinner body, a smoother schedule. You feel it when your bank account grows, but your peace doesn't. It whispers, just a little more. Picture a man on a treadmill. He's running hard, drenched in sweat, breathing sharp. The machine's screen shows he's making progress, more miles, more calories burned. But look closer. The scenery never changes. The room is still the same. The man isn't going anywhere. That man is all of us when we chase what we haven't defined. We work longer hours, stack degrees, optimize calendars, hustle side incomes. Yet we never pause to ask, to what end? Our lives fill with motion, but not meaning. It's not greed that drives this, it's fear. Fear of falling behind, of not being enough, of being forgotten. So we run harder. The Buddha called it tanha, craving. Not just for things, but for sensations, for permanence, for control. He didn't say wealth was evil. He said attachment to desire was suffering. Craving, he taught, is a fire that feeds on itself. You pour success into it, and it only burns hotter. 1,000 followers breed the need for 10,000. 1 million in the bank sparks the itch for 5. This isn't just spiritual wisdom, it's biological. The dopamine of the chase fades as soon as we catch the prize. The raise becomes the baseline. The vacation becomes a highlight reel. We adapt. Then we want more. Marcus Aurelius ruled over one of the most powerful empires in history. But he knew the empire he truly needed to govern was within. It is not the man who has too little, he wrote, but the man who craves more, who is poor. He saw clearly luxury doesn't liberate. It distracts. It convinces us we are rich while quietly making us hollow. The world around us reinforces the lie of more. Ads tell us happiness is one purchase away. Culture tells us success is the one who dies with the most toys. Productivity gurus whisper that our value is tied to output. The result? Even rest becomes a task. Even joy feels guilty. But pause for a moment. Imagine waking up tomorrow with everything stripped away: title, status, bank account, achievements. What remains? Would you still know who you are? Would you still find meaning in your breath, in the sunrise, in your own stillness? True wealth begins there. It begins in recognizing that chasing more often means abandoning now. That fulfillment isn't something earned, it's something reclaimed. It's not a future prize, it's a present posture. One of gratitude, of clarity, of enough. The wise path isn't anti-success, it's anti-delusion. It doesn't say don't grow, it says grow with awareness. It invites you to ask, when will it be enough? Who am I without the chase? What do I already have that I've forgotten to treasure? This is the first cut through the fog, to see that our culture's definition of wealth is a moving finish line. And the only way to win that race is to step off the treadmill. Craving more doesn't lead to fulfillment, it leads to suffering. Real wealth begins by questioning the chase. Where in your life are you sprinting without a clear destination? Take 10 minutes today to sit in silence. No goals, no input. Just breathe and notice what comes up when you stop running. Chapter 2. The Emperor Who Owned Nothing. He ruled the known world. Legions marched at his command. Gold flowed through his treasury. Statues of his likeness were raised in every province. And yet, when Marcus Aurelius put ink to parchment, what he wrote had nothing to do with conquest. No boasting, no commands, just quiet reminders to himself: control your thoughts. Expect adversity. Stay humble. Let go. He was the emperor of Rome, but more importantly, he was a student of his own mind. His journal, now known as Meditations, reads not like the voice of a ruler, but of a man trying not to be ruled by fear, by anger, by desire. He knew that owning the world meant nothing if the world owned him. Ownership is a seductive illusion. We believe we possess things, cars, houses, titles, but often it's they who possess us. They come with maintenance, anxiety, status games. We build empires of things and call it success, unaware that we've locked ourselves inside the walls. We don't steward possessions, they become the stewards of our time, our peace, our worth. Marcus lived in palaces, but his philosophy stripped life to its essence. Receive without pride, he wrote, let go without attachment. He saw that true wealth was not in what could be held, but in what could be released. In letting go of control, he found clarity. In surrendering the outcome, he discovered power. His riches were not his robes, but his restraint. Contrast that with today's success stories, entrepreneurs who scale fast and burn out faster, celebrities with millions who confess to emptiness, influencers who curate perfect lives while drowning behind the screen. We chase external abundance while starving internally. The world celebrates accumulation, but rarely teaches discernment. What's the cost of owning more? What peace have we traded for prestige? There's a story of a man who spent his life collecting rare watches. He had rooms full of them, locked drawers, private safes, insurance documents. One day he looked at his collection and realized he had become a curator of timepieces, but had no time for the people he loved. Each watch ticked a reminder he had spent years accumulating what he would never have time to enjoy. Marcus would have understood. He once wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This wasn't morbid, it was clarifying. When you remember how temporary everything is, you begin to ask different questions. You stop building your identity on what can be taken from you. You begin to invest in what lasts: character, courage, clarity. To own nothing means to be owned by nothing. Not to reject wealth, but to master the mind that engages with it. To hold everything loosely, gratefully, with open hands. Like sand, the tighter you grip it, the more it escapes. But if you simply hold it, it stays. The emperor who ruled Rome understood this. The greatest throne is inner sovereignty. The most valuable currency is peace of mind. And the highest form of wealth is to walk through the world unburdened by the need to prove or possess. Chapter 3. Enough is everything. There once was a man who kept a single gold coin in a velvet pouch. Each day he opened the pouch, smiled at the coin, and went about his life. But one day he thought, what if I had two? So he worked longer hours, made shrewd deals, and earned a second coin. Then he thought, 2 is good, but 3 would bring security. Then 4. Then 5. Eventually, his pouch became a chest, and his home became a vault. But peace never arrived. He died surrounded by gold, clutching a pouch he no longer had the strength to lift. This is the curse of almost enough. It's the mirage that keeps moving the moment you approach it. The mind whispers, once I hit this income, then I'll relax. Once I have this many clients, I'll be secure. But the bar rises with the bank account. What was once luxury becomes necessity. Gratitude gives way to expectation. We become prisoners of the line we refuse to draw. The Buddha warned of this. He taught that desire is not simply wanting. It's the inability to recognize sufficiency, to never know when to stop drinking, even when you're already full. He called it a thirst that blinds, and the only cure was awakening, seeing clearly the difference between need and craving. Marcus Aurelius lived in the palace of palaces, yet he disciplined himself to want little. He chose simple meals, wore plain clothes, and practiced poverty in spirit. If you seek tranquility, he wrote, do less. Or rather, do what's essential. He wasn't anti-ambition. He was anti-restlessness. He believed that a man who knows his enough is freer than a king who does not. Defining enough is an act of rebellion. In a world addicted to excess, moderation looks like failure. If you don't want more, people wonder if you've given up. But maybe you've just woken up. Maybe you've realized that the goal is not to own the most, but to feel the most alive. That aliveness isn't found in the next upgrade, but in the unnoticed moments you were too busy to see before. To declare what is enough is to draw a sacred line around your life, not out of scarcity, but sovereignty. You decide when the pursuit ends, not advertisers, not competitors, not even your past self. And from that line comes clarity, fewer decisions, fewer distractions, more depth. A monk once said, the richest person is not the one who has the most, but the one who needs the least. It's not a call to asceticism, it's a call to wisdom. When you know what truly satisfies you, you stop mistaking stimulation for joy. You learn the difference between full and fulfilled. Enough is not a number. It's a relationship with yourself, with the present, with the quiet dignity of contentment. It asks you to look around and say, this is sufficient. I don't need more to prove my worth. And when you say that, something profound happens. Your life begins to feel whole. In that wholeness, wealth takes on a new form. It's the calm of knowing your bills are paid, your time is yours, and your joy is not for sale. It's the rare and radical ability to walk away, not because you failed to get more, but because you've chosen to live well with less. Knowing what is enough liberates you from the endless pursuit of more. Where in your life have you failed to define enough, and how is it costing your peace? Write down one area, money, time, achievement, where you will define your enough today. Let it be your boundary, not your burden. Chapter 4. Quiet is the new rich. If you scoop a bucket into a muddy river and let it sit, something strange happens. At first, the water is opaque, swirling with silt. But if you leave it untouched, the particles begin to settle. Slowly, the water clears. What was once clouded becomes transparent, not by force, but by stillness. So it is with the human mind. We live in a culture that fears silence. Phones buzz, screens flash, conversations fill every pause. The noise is our default. If there's a moment of emptiness, we rush to fill it. But what if that emptiness is the doorway to everything we've been looking for? Buddha often taught in silence. When a student asked him the nature of truth, sometimes he simply held up a flower. No words, just presence. In that stillness, something deeper was conveyed, that reality is not always something to be explained. Sometimes it must be experienced. Silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of space. It's where wisdom gathers. In quiet, the mind stops rehearsing and starts listening. We begin to hear the subtle voice underneath the ego's noise. That voice doesn't shout, it waits. It doesn't compete, it invites. Marcus Aurelius understood this, even amidst the chaos of an empire. Nowhere you can go is more peaceful, more free of interruptions, than your own soul, he wrote. Imagine that, the emperor of Rome, surrounded by war councils and political schemes, retreating not to fortresses, but inward, to the unshakable sanctuary of silence. We tend to associate wealth with volume, the booming voice, the loud lifestyle, the flashy arrival. But that noise is often compensation. People who are whole rarely need to broadcast it. The truest wealth is subtle. It moves quietly, like roots growing deep into the earth. You don't see it at first, but everything above the surface depends on it. Quiet is radical because it reveals. When you remove the distractions, you're left with the truth. Are you comfortable in your own company? Can you sit with yourself without reaching for something to dull the discomfort? If not, it's not the world that needs to change. It's your relationship with your own mind. Many chase wealth to escape that discomfort. They fill their calendars, their closets, their homes, hoping the noise will drown out the void. But no amount of external richness can soothe an unsettled soul. It's like pouring perfume into a broken vase. The scent fades. The crack remains. To embrace silence is to become rich in awareness. You start noticing the sound of your breath, the way light shifts in the afternoon, the texture of your thoughts. Presence returns, and with it, a sense of sufficiency so deep it can't be shaken. This is not a call to retreat to the mountains, though the monks may do that. It's a call to create moments of quiet inside your daily noise. A pause before responding, a breath before reacting, a walk without headphones. Each is a small revolution, a choice to be here fully. In stillness, you remember that you are not what you do, what you earn, or what others see. You are the one who watches it all. And that witness, silent and serene, is your truest wealth. Stillness isn't emptiness, it's clarity. Quiet is where wealth begins to speak. When was the last time you sat in silence without trying to change or fix anything? Today, take 5 undisturbed minutes to sit in silence. No music, no phone, just you, and see what rises. Chapter 5. The Currency of Time. Imagine you wake up one morning to find a small envelope on your nightstand. Inside is a note that reads, "Today you've been gifted 1,440 minutes. Spend them wisely." They will not renew. There's no signature, no explanation. But the message is clear. This isn't money, it's something far more valuable. Time. Unlike wealth, time is democratic. Every person, whether emperor or beggar, receives the same 24 hours. Yet how we use that time reveals what we truly value. While many obsess over protecting their finances, they spend their minutes recklessly, scrolling endlessly, chasing approval, procrastinating on what matters. We budget dollars, but we squander hours. Marcus Aurelius, amid the weight of ruling Rome, never lost sight of this. "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years, he warned. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good. It wasn't a morbid fixation, it was a lens for clarity. When you understand time as finite, you stop wasting it on the trivial. We often say, "I don't have time," as if it's missing. But time is not something we have, it's something we use. And too often, we use it on the wrong things, rehashing old conversations, worrying about futures we can't control, numbing the present with distractions. The tragedy isn't that life is short, it's that we make it shorter with our choices. Buddha approached this differently, yet led to the same truth. He taught the impermanence of all things. Everything, he said, is in flux: our thoughts, our bodies, our relationships. To cling is to suffer, but to accept impermanence is to awaken. The wise do not mourn the passing of time, they honor it by being fully present in it. In today's economy, we measure value by productivity. Time is often reduced to a transaction: billable hours, hourly rates, time blocks. But beneath the spreadsheet is something softer, more sacred. A father reading to his child. A friend truly listening without checking their phone. A walk at sunset where nothing needs to happen. These moments don't produce, but they enrich. Every yes is a no to something else. When you say yes to another hour of work, what are you saying no to? When you agree to another obligation, what is left undone in the quiet corners of your soul? Time, unlike money, cannot be earned back. Once spent, it is gone, taking with it everything we postponed for later. And yet there is no scarcity for those who live attentively. A single moment of presence can feel more valuable than an entire week spent distracted. The man who notices the warmth of his coffee, who walks without earbuds, who feels the pulse of his own breath, that man is wealthy, regardless of his income. So the question becomes, how will you invest your minutes? Not in the abstract future, but today, right now. Will you trade your time for things that multiply your peace, deepen your connection, sharpen your awareness? Or will you hand it over to the endless scroll, the shallow yes, the illusion of busyness? In the end, no one remembers how efficiently you checked your email. They remember how you made them feel, the presence you gave, the life you lived. Time is the currency of meaning. Spend it like it matters, because it does. Time is your most precious wealth. Once spent, it can never be reclaimed. Where are you spending time that yields no real return on your life? Block off 30 minutes today for something deeply human: a slow meal, a phone-free walk, or an unhurried conversation. Treat it like treasure. Chapter 6. Investing in what can't be taken. There was a man who lost everything overnight. The market collapsed, his business crumbled, and the house he'd once called his castle now belonged to the bank. Friends who once returned his calls disappeared into silence. But when asked how he was holding up, he didn't speak of fear. He said, "They took what I had, but not who I am." Most investments come with risk. Markets shift, real estate depreciates, fortunes evaporate. What feels secure one year can dissolve the next. But there is a kind of wealth untouched by recessions or theft. It is invisible, yet powerful. It lives in the content of your character, the steadiness of your values, the clarity of your mind. Buddha spoke of these qualities not as luxuries, but as necessities. Patience, compassion, presence, these were not soft virtues. They were strength itself. A man who cultivates kindness in a world built on comparison is not weak. He is rich in ways others haven't learned to measure. Marcus Aurelius knew this well. As Rome swirled with betrayal and plague, he returned again and again to one question: what can I control? His answer was always the same: his principles, his responses, his effort. Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be, he wrote. Be one. In other words, stop performing. Start embodying. In a world obsessed with image, internal wealth seems invisible. It doesn't earn you praise at dinner parties. It doesn't come with applause or a line on your resume. But it shows up when life tests you. An illness strikes, when you lose the job, when the future dissolves into fog. In those moments, the external falls away, and only what's internal remains. Think of a tree in winter. Stripped of leaves, it appears bare, lifeless. But underneath, deep roots are holding firm. Nourishment flows invisibly. Storms come, snow falls, but the tree stands, not because of what it shows, but because of what it stores. You are the same. What you build beneath the surface determines whether you bend or break. To invest in internal wealth is to make deposits into the parts of yourself no one else sees. It's the choice to respond with grace when you're tempted by anger. It's to stay centered when provoked, to choose honesty over convenience. These actions won't trend online, but they accrue value over time. They become your real net worth. The world changes fast. Trends evolve. Economies shift. But integrity doesn't go out of style. Empathy doesn't crash. Wisdom doesn't devalue. These are assets no one can steal. They grow with attention, with intention, with practice. You build them not once, but daily, through small decisions, quiet moments, consistent truth. There's a different kind of legacy waiting. Not in buildings named after you, but in the way you make others feel safe, seen, and stronger. Not in accumulating things, but in becoming someone unshakable. This kind of wealth multiplies when shared. And unlike money, you leave it behind in hearts, not accounts. So invest deeply, not just in what earns, but in what endures. Not just in what shows, but in what sustains. Because when the world strips you bare, these are the riches you'll still hold. Internal wealth, character, clarity, compassion can't be lost, stolen, or spent. It is the most secure investment. What inner quality are you neglecting that would serve you most in times of uncertainty? Choose one internal virtue, patience, humility, resilience, and practice it deliberately today, especially when it feels inconvenient. Chapter 7. The Power of Not Wanting. There's a story of a traveling monk who wandered from village to village with nothing but a bowl and a robe. One afternoon, a thief approached him, expecting resistance. The monk simply said, "You may take what you wish." The thief, confused, found nothing to steal. No gold, no valuables, not even food. The monk smiled and continued walking. He had nothing, yet lacked nothing. He was free. Wanting, by nature, feels normal. We're told to desire more, to strive, to reach, to dream bigger. But few ask the cost of constant wanting. Every desire is a tether, every craving a chain. A want is to subtly affirm that what is not enough. Buddha saw this clearly. He taught that suffering begins not with pain, but with clinging, the tight grasp of the mind that says, "I need this to be happy." Whether it's status, possessions, praise, or even certainty, the moment we must have it, we become its servant. We don't hold desires, they hold us. This isn't a rejection of goals. It's a reframing of relationship. To hold something lightly is different than clinging. The one who holds lightly can appreciate the gift and let it go. The one who clings lives in fear, of loss, of failure, of never getting enough. Marcus Aurelius, with all the empire at his feet, knew this intimately. Receive wealth or prosperity without arrogance, he wrote, and be ready to let it go. His philosophy was not one of detachment for detachment's sake, but of liberation. He knew that when you don't need something, you become invincible to its loss. Wanting, paradoxically, creates scarcity. It whispers that joy lies just beyond reach. That once we achieve, arrive, acquire, then we'll feel peace. But the wanting never ends. It multiplies. What once felt like a luxury soon becomes expectation. Gratitude fades into hunger. The more we have, the more we fear losing it. But when you stop wanting, when you truly let go, an entirely new form of wealth appears. Not the kind found in ledgers, but in liberation. In being able to walk away. In knowing that your well-being isn't held hostage by anything outside of you. Imagine walking into a room full of temptation, fame, riches, admiration, and feeling no pull. Not because you're better than it, but because you've already tasted something deeper. That inner fullness, in that enoughness, that quiet clarity that says, "I am complete as I am." To not want isn't apathy, it's power. It's choosing peace over pursuit. It's waking up and not needing the day to go a certain way to feel whole. It's engaging with life from fullness, not from lack. And when you do that, something shifts. You become the one who gives freely, because you're not calculating return. You move with ease, because your worth isn't on the line. You stop performing. You start living. The monk had nothing, yet lacked nothing. That is the paradox of the wise path. When you stop grasping, your hands are finally open. Not to seize, but to receive. And in that posture, true abundance flows, not because you chased it, but because you created space for it to enter. Freedom begins not in gaining more, but in needing less. What are you currently grasping that is quietly robbing you of peace? Identify one craving, status, possession, outcome, and choose to release your grip on it today. Let go and observe what remains. Chapter 8. Governing the Self. At night, after the court had quieted and the torches dimmed, Marcus Aurelius would retreat to his chamber and write. Not proclamations. Not policies, just reflections, stern, honest, unflinching. He reminded himself to be patient, to stay humble, to expect obstacles and meet them with calm. Though Emperor of Rome, he knew the hardest realm to rule was within. The outer world is loud, crowded with demands and distractions. But beneath it lies another world, your inner domain. It is here that decisions are made before they are acted out. It is here that battles are won or lost long before others notice. And it is here, most of all, where wealth either flourishes or fades. To govern the self is not to suppress desire or feeling. It is to take full responsibility for how you respond. You may not control the winds, but you can trim the sails. You may not write the script of life, but you can choose your role in the next scene. That's where power lives, not in circumstance, but in sovereignty. Buddha taught that the mind, left untrained, is like a wild elephant, powerful but dangerous, swayed by impulse and fear. But a mind disciplined through awareness becomes not a tyrant, but a servant. With mindfulness, we don't react, we respond. We don't chase every craving, we observe. And in that observation, we reclaim control. Modern life makes self-governance rare. We are triggered by headlines, pulled by algorithms, seduced by urgency. We outsource our attention to devices and call it progress. We confuse stimulation with significance. But when everything pulls you outward, the act of turning inward becomes radical. To pause, to breathe, to choose not out of habit but intention. Wealth, too, begs for governance. Without clarity, it becomes a master, not a tool. The person who earns more than they imagined but lacks restraint becomes enslaved to lifestyle creep. The one who seeks financial freedom but is ruled by comparison never tastes the freedom they chase. Abundance without awareness is simply distraction in a different costume. The Stoics spoke often of self-rule. To them, freedom wasn't the ability to do anything, it was the strength to choose wisely. The best revenge, Marcus wrote, is to be unlike him who performed the injury. Not because you're passive, but because you refuse to let others dictate your character. Think of a candle in the wind. It flickers wildly, unstable, at risk of going out. Now picture a lantern in a glass case, still lit, but protected. That is what self-governance does. It shelters your light. It keeps you grounded when the world sways. It allows you to remain whole in a fractured time. But governance doesn't happen by accident. It is forged daily, in small choices. The decision to pause before replying. The discipline to say no when yes would betray your values. The humility to admit fault. These aren't grand gestures. They are the steady beat of integrity. To govern the self is to become rich in a way that can't be measured. Not with spreadsheets or accolades, but with calm, with presence, with the rare ability to face chaos without becoming it. That kind of wealth changes every room you enter, not because of what you own, but because of who you are. Real power lies in governing your responses, not your circumstances. Where in your life are you reacting from habit instead of choosing from principle? Today, when you feel triggered or pulled off center, pause. Take a breath. Choose your next move, not from impulse, but from intention. Chapter 9. Show up today. He kept saying, someday. Someday, when the debts were paid. Someday, when the house was finished. Someday, when the promotion came through, when the kids were grown, when life finally slowed down. But someday never arrived. It hovered like a mirage, always ahead, never here. And while waiting for life to begin, it quietly slipped away. We're taught to live in preparation, to build toward the future, to sacrifice the now for the not yet. There is wisdom in planning, but also danger. If tomorrow becomes the sole focus, today becomes a placeholder. We stop living and start rehearsing. We trade presence for potential. Buddha warned against this. He spoke of sati, mindfulness, not as an abstract ideal, but as the doorway to freedom. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future, he said. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. To be fully here, now, is not indulgence. It is awakening. Marcus Aurelius echoed this, even as an emperor consumed by state affairs. Never let the future disturb you, he wrote. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you. In his private writings, he reminded himself again and again, today is all you own. Govern it well. But in the modern world, the present is a hard place to stay. We are pulled into forecasts, notifications, endless plans. We chase optimization, stacking habits, batching tasks, plotting 5-year goals. Yet in doing so, we often forget how to be here, fully, without distraction, without trying to improve the moment, just to dwell in it. The mind loves forward motion. It wants to predict, control, anticipate. But the heart knows how to be still, to listen, to witness. Wealth, in its truest form, isn't just financial, it's emotional availability, presence of mind, depth of experience. And all of that is only available right now. There's a reason people remember moments, not years. A cup of coffee shared in silence. A hand held during grief. Laughter that made your ribs ache. These are not future milestones. They are small portals into a life fully lived. And they are always available, but only if you show up. Living today as if it were enough doesn't mean giving up on ambition. It means refusing to postpone joy. It means seeing the sacred in the mundane, the richness of a breath, the elegance of a simple task done with care. It's realizing that fulfillment doesn't wait at the end of effort, it blooms in the middle of it. So many suffer not from lack of time, but lack of presence. We are alive, but distracted, awake, but elsewhere. And in this way, life passes without ever being truly lived. We mourn its speed, yet race through it. We long for more meaning, yet flee the stillness where meaning leaves. But when you slow down and show up, something shifts. You begin to see beauty in places you once ignored. You find peace not in escape, but in engagement. You begin to trust that this moment, this very one, is enough. And in that trust, a different kind of wealth emerges, not earned, but received. To show up today is to reclaim your life from abstraction. It is to say, this is where I am. This is what I have. And this, for now, is enough. Everything real begins there. Presence is the most undervalued form of wealth and the most transformative. What part of your life have you been postponing, waiting for the right time that never comes? Choose one ordinary moment today, eating, walking, talking, and give it your full, undivided attention. Let it be enough. Chapter 10. Wealth that serves. There was a teacher who never earned much. He lived in a modest house, wore simple clothes, and walked to work every day. His bank account was unimpressive, his title unknown outside his small town. But at his funeral, the line of mourners wrapped around the block. Former students, now adults, wept as they told stories of how he changed their lives. He died with little in his name, but left behind a legacy too rich to count. Wealth is often measured in accumulation. How much you've stored, how many assets you've acquired. But true wealth reveals itself in how it flows. A stagnant pool grows foul. A river nourishes every shore it touches. The wise understand, if your wealth serves only you, it shrinks. But when it becomes a channel of generosity, purpose, impact, it expands. Buddha spoke of dana, the virtue of giving, not out of obligation, but from understanding. When we give, we acknowledge that life is not ours to hoard. Everything we have is borrowed. To give is to align with reality. It breaks the illusion of separateness and reminds us we belong to each other. Marcus Aurelius, despite his power, was never impressed by selfish gain. He wrote, "What is not good for the beehive cannot be good for the bee." He knew that our lives are interwoven. That personal wealth disconnected from collective good is counterfeit. That to live only for oneself is to live half a life. In modern terms, we call it purpose. We ask, what's my why? But the question is deeper than personal fulfillment. It's about contribution, not what you can extract from the world, but what you can offer. Your wisdom, your presence, your skill, your compassion. These are the currencies that build true abundance. The tragedy is how many build empires and feel empty inside. They climb ladders that rest against the wrong walls. They reach the top and ask, is this it? Because without service, success is hollow. Without impact, riches echo. A life spent in self-service may impress from a distance, but it rarely satisfies up close. To serve something greater doesn't require sainthood. It requires sincerity. A business that uplifts instead of exploits. A parent who raises not just obedient children, but whole humans. A neighbor who shows up. A creator who makes not for applause, but to awaken. These choices, small and steady, shape a life of richness that transcends net worth. We often think we must wait until we have more to give. But generosity isn't about excess, it's about orientation. A poor man who shares his last loaf is wealthier than a rich man who hoards his abundance. The measure isn't in what's given, but in the heart that gives it. The paradox of wealth is this: the more you let it flow, the more it returns, though not always in the form you expect. You may give money and receive peace. You may offer time and gain purpose. You may serve others and discover yourself. The returns are invisible, but unmistakable. A wealthy life is one that touches others, not just by accident, but by design. Not just occasionally, but consistently. That teacher, whose life seemed small on paper, left behind a fortune, written not in numbers, but in people. And that, in the end, is the wealth that lasts. The richest life is one that serves beyond the self-wealth that flows, multiplies its value. Where in your life are you holding back your gifts, waiting for the right time to share? Identify one small act of service you can offer today, without reward, without recognition. Let your wealth move. Chapter 11. A life aligned. A compass doesn't argue. It doesn't shout or sway with the wind. It points north, always. Steady, silent, sure. In a storm, when maps are useless and stars are hidden, a compass becomes invaluable. Because when everything outside is uncertain, what matters most is having something true inside. We live in a world of weather vanes, constantly spinning, reacting, adjusting to the latest trend, pressure, or opinion. We are pulled by the expectations of others, the pace of the culture, the metrics of success we never chose. And slowly, often without realizing it, we drift. We say yes when we mean no. We pursue what others applaud, not what we value. We become misaligned. Buddha taught that right action arises from right view. In other words, clarity must precede conduct. When you see clearly, you live cleanly. When you understand what truly matters, you stop selling pieces of yourself for approval. Alignment is not about perfection. It is about integrity. Not moral purity, but internal coherence, where your values, words, and actions match. Marcus Aurelius lived this fiercely. He was not just a philosopher in thought, but in practice. Each night, he returned to his journal, asking, "Did I live according to nature? Did I act from reason, not impulse? Did I uphold my principles, even when it cost me?" He governed not just with laws, but with conscience. He knew that ruling others meant little if he could not rule himself. A life aligned may look quiet from the outside. It may not win headlines or likes, but it hums with a deep, steady resonance. You feel it in the decisions made without regret, in the peace that follows an honest no, in the confidence that doesn't need to be loud because it knows where it stands. The misaligned life, by contrast, is heavy. It's full of friction. You succeed in the eyes of others, but fail in your own. You achieve, but feel hollow. You're constantly adjusting, pretending, hustling to maintain a version of yourself that doesn't quite fit. It's exhausting, and eventually unsustainable. To realign, you must pause. Ask not just what you're doing, but why. Not just what you want, but whether it's yours to want. Strip away the layers of expectation. Listen for your own voice underneath the noise. It's quieter than the world, but clearer. And it's pointing somewhere honest. Alignment is radical because it requires saying no to shortcuts, to shallow praise, to roles that pay well but cost too much of your soul. It requires disappointing others so you can stop disappointing yourself. It may cost you comfort, but it grants you peace. And with peace comes power. The power to move without second-guessing, to speak without self-betrayal, to rest without guilt. When your life flows from your deepest truths, you stop chasing. You start offering. You stop proving. You start becoming. The world feels less like a battle and more like a field you are meant to walk. A compass doesn't control the terrain, but it tells you which way is home. A life aligned doesn't guarantee ease, but it offers direction. And in a noisy, shifting world, that may be the rarest form of wealth there is. Alignment isn't ease, it's integrity. Living in line with your values is the quiet key to fulfillment. Where in your life are your actions out of sync with your deeper beliefs? Choose one decision you've been making from pressure or fear. Realign it today, even with a small shift toward your true north. Chapter 12. The Blueprint. A house built without a blueprint might look impressive until the first storm arrives. Then the cracks appear. The foundation shifts. What was once admired begins to crumble. The wise do not build by chance. They build by design. And the same is true for a life. The pursuit of wealth, for many, begins without a plan. We inherit goals we didn't choose, chase dreams we never questioned, and follow models that promised much but delivered little. We accumulate, perform, strive, only to feel more restless than when we started. The problem was never ambition. It was the absence of direction. But what if wealth could be redefined? What if the metrics changed, not from net worth, but from inner alignment? Not from possessions, but from peace. Not from comparison, but from clarity? This is the blueprint Buddha and Marcus Aurelius left behind, not in spreadsheets or doctrines, but in the shape of their lives. They lived not to impress, but to awaken. Not to control, but to release. Not to conquer others, but to master themselves. From their teachings, a new architecture of wealth emerges. First, detach from illusions of control. The world will always be unpredictable. Markets rise and fall. Relationships shift. Plans unravel. But you are not powerless. You can govern your responses. You can choose stillness over panic, clarity over noise. Real wealth begins when you stop trying to control what you never could. Second, define enough. This is the most courageous act in a world that feeds on discontent. Enough is not stagnation, it is sovereignty. It frees you from the tyranny of always needing more. It lets you enjoy what you have instead of mourning what you lack. Third, live today as if it were enough. Not someday, not after you've earned it, but now. Show up with presence. Taste your food. Hear the laughter. Feel your breath. A life is not built in giant moments. It is crafted in small, attentive ones. This moment is where your life actually happens. Fourth, invest in internal wealth. Build the character that outlives circumstance. Cultivate patience. Practice compassion. Train your mind to return to stillness. The richest people are not those with the most, but those who are anchored when everything shakes. Fifth, serve something greater. Let your wealth ripple beyond you. Use your gifts to uplift. Let your success be a doorway for others. When your life becomes useful, it becomes meaningful. And meaning is the currency that never runs out. These are not steps to complete, but patterns to live. A rhythm, not a race. A way of being, not a tactic. The wise path to wealth doesn't shout. It doesn't promise instant transformation. It whispers and invites. It takes your hand and says, "You already have enough." Now build from there. The monk with nothing, the emperor with everything, they met at the same truth. That peace is not circumstantial. That freedom begins inside. That wealth is a way of seeing, not a sum on a screen. So now the blueprint is yours, not to admire but to walk. Begin again, not with striving but with stillness. Not with pressure, but with presence. You are not behind. You are exactly where this journey begins. The wise path to wealth is not something you chase, it's something you align with, moment by moment. Which part of this blueprint do you most need to build into your life today? Choose one principle from this book and live it intentionally for the next 24 hours. Let it be your first brick on a new foundation. Take care and be well.